Welcome to Management Learning Meets. In this video, L Cunliffe, outgoing co-editor of Management Learning and Professor of Organisation Studies at University of Bradford School of Management, talks about the importance of reflexive approaches to management, research, practice and learning, and discusses her highly cited 2002 and 2009 articles on reflexivity, published in Management Learning.
So I first got interested in reflexivity over 20 years ago, and my interest actually started with a question from Mark Easterby-Smith, who was my PhD supervisor at the time. And I remember sitting in his office and he said to me, "Do you know anything about postmodernism?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Well, go away and read a couple of articles." And of course it's impossible to read a couple of articles and understand postmodernism. So 6 months later, and I don't know how many articles, I was struggling with, what do I do with postmodernism, and came across reflexivity. And so for me, reflexivity was really a way of dealing with some of the questions that at the time postmodernists were raising. I think the more I became interested in reflexivity, the more convinced I became that reflexivity is actually about being ethical, managing and leading ethical, responsive and responsible organisations. And I think there's a crucial difference between reflection and reflexivity. They're often talked about as if they're the same, but for me they're not. So the way that I think about reflexivity is it's about questioning what's taken for granted at whatever level that we're working at. So it may be questioning what we take for granted about the nature of knowledge. It might be questioning what we take for granted about our practice. It might involve looking at practices and policies in organisations and saying, well, what's being said here, but also what's not being said. What impact is what is not being said and what's being said having. It's critique in the form of looking at the performativity of language. So how does what we write, how does the language that we use, how does what we say and that language influence the way that we understand what's going on around us? How might that privilege certain ways of thinking and acting over others? I think one area in which reflexivity has been taken up in organisation studies is what I would call methodological reflexivity. So it's sort of found a home in research methods. And so I'm thinking of the work by Johnson and Duberly, Alverson, Mats Alverson, Hardy and Harley, their paper. And those are all around how can we be reflexive in our research. So I think that's sort of one strand, and I think that's now gaining momentum. I think there's more interest now in reflexive practice. So what does it mean to be a reflexive manager or a reflexive leader, and why is that important? So, my article on the philosopher leader in management learning is all about teaching leadership from a reflexive, a relational and a moral perspective. I've actually been trying to teach from a reflexive perspective for many years, both undergrads and graduates. There's a sort of reflexive challenge there, isn't there? Because if I'm being reflexive about my own practice as a researcher and a teacher, then it's not something that I can impose on students. So the way that I've always tried to engage students with reflexivity at whatever level is to say, it's up to you whether you want to be reflexive. It's up to you whether you want to engage with these ideas. But what is important is thinking about them and then deciding.